Welcome everyone to this workshop presented by Digi-Key and the 2021 Hackaday Prize. We're super excited to have you all here, and of course our awesome instructor, facilitator, Rob Nelson, who will all out to introduce himself in just a moment. And we're very lucky that this is the second time, I believe, or is it more than 2 times, Rob, you've led this with us?
It's been a few years.
Oh,
Back
okay.
when we did SuperCon. Yeah, it's
right.
I think we're
And
getting double digits
for
now.
Sure. Yeah, awesome. So Rob's a pro, as you'll see, of course. So yeah, just welcome everyone. If you need any more information on the Hackaday Prize or Supply Frame or Design Lab, I'm happy to answer questions in the chat, or you can always email prize@hackaday.com, which I'll drop that email here right now. And I should introduce myself. My name is Magenta Strongheart. I'm head of design and partnerships here at Design Lab, which is Supply Frame's physical design and fabrication facility in Pasadena, right outside of Los Angeles. And for those of you who don't know, Supply Frame is Hackaday's parent company, as well as Design Lab and Tindy, and a few other components to our company. And yeah, I'm pretty much just here to help Rob facilitate and keep things moving. But again, if you have any questions for me, feel free to send them in the chat or to that email. I'm also going to drop the prize links so that if anybody wants to learn more about the prize, you can check out more details here. We still have one challenge left, the wildcard challenge. So it's really the most accessible for anyone to enter with any project they may be in the middle of right now. You have about a month to enter, and there's some awesome prizes on the line, which will be determined in November. So we're coming up on the finals here, and then we'll be giving out a $25,000 grand prize in addition to a bunch of other smaller prizes for some awesome open source hardware innovations. So again, feel free to ask me questions there. And then I know there were 2 common questions being sort of floating around, and I've gotten over email before this as well, which are, if you didn't get your hardware, we're so sorry. I think there were some issues with some of the international places getting the hardware there on time, so our apologies. But this sort of relates to the next question, which was, will this be recorded and sent out to you all? And it will, especially because some of you are missing hardware. We want you to be able to catch up on your own time when you do get those parts. So thanks again. And without further ado, I'll pass it off to Rob.
Thanks, Magenta, for that lovely intro. So I'm Robert Nelson, apps engineer of Digi-Key. Also, I do a lot of presentations from BeagleBoard, ESP32s, you name it. So if you have any questions, feel free to unmute. This is a pretty small group, so we don't have to worry about too many people yelling back and forth. So, but it will be on YouTube. So yeah, just remember that.
I have a question connecting because apparently it's a power problem. Once when the daughter board's connected, it doesn't start up, and when I remove it, indeed you start up. But now the instructions don't say to what address you should log in as root, because
yep. So our Debian images have 2 logins: root to root, or you can use Debian and temp password.
Okay, but which IP? Because it doesn't give it as a router. So my computer now has IP 6.1. But which IP do I connect to? Because I don't see that in the instructions online.
Yep. So what we're going to do is actually assume serial for most users. Serial is going to be the most working for Linux and Windows. Linux and Mac, it's .62, whereas Windows will be .72.
Okay.
Because thanks to driver signing in both Mac and Windows, Mac actually uses Windows uses RNDIS for the Ethernet stack, and on Mac we use NCM, and Linux just doesn't care. It'll do them both. So we get different IPs depending on if it's Mac or Windows. And then Linux, you can actually use both IPs. So welcome to the world of signing drivers.
IP for Mac?
Because for Mac, it'll be 192.168.6.2 will be the Mac Ethernet port, and it should show up in your I forget what it's called.
It does show up in the network settings.
Yep.
And so that's what I said. But when I do SSH root, it's 192.168.6.2.
Yep, root's disabled over SSH. It's a security profile. Use Debian. So you can only log in with root over the serial port. Over the Ethernet, it's denied. So yeah, we got some security nowadays, even though the password's been the same for 20 years. So So starting kind of at the beginning, you guys. So we have our standard Pocket Beagle. For this demo, we're going to use the accelerometer on the left. We're going to use a push button on the bottom. These two don't really matter. And the LCD is also enabled, but we ran out of I2C ports. So the same cable that you use for the accelerometer, you could plug into the LCD and you could just echo into dev LCD and show characters. But I figured for today, we'll just show data. The other sensor you got in the box in the kit is this another Seed Studio. This is the SHT35 sensor. There wasn't a real good temp sensor in the kit, so we added that by default. And then we're going to use both the slider and the rotor wheel. So I'm going to walk through all the steps for everyone. So I just inserted a new micro SD card into this, and I'm going to use Milena Etcher to write it. And I'll put the directions on the front page again. Let's see. There's the chat window. So in our instructions, we talk about using Milena Flasher. The default image will not go away. It's going to be on my personal web server where I host all BeagleBoard stuff. So I'll just show you everyone this for. So we have the default image built for today. And then I have stuff on here from last year. So it's like, it won't disappear. It'll be up. So we're going to flash from file, the one we just downloaded. And then select target. And my SD card reader's it's getting wear out. So I'm going to plug it in a couple times. There we go. There it is. So I'll just let that flash. Make sure your Wi-Fi dongle is plugged in the bottom. Sadly, this device, this Wi-Fi dongle doesn't support AP mode, so that's one reason we have to go in through the serial terminal. My main goal of this was to be a access gateway. We just connect to it directly, but no, we need to connect to a Wi-Fi. Make sure the board is seated all the way. It should be from the factory. Micro SD card. See, there's a USB note here, and one point there was a micro SD card here, but I don't see it right now. But make sure those line up and that they're not offset by 1 or 2. That might be causing one of the power issues one of our users is having. And let's see, it's almost done flashing. I'm going to bring up Device Manager to show you what we see. And make sure the cable that we're going to use today, make sure it's actually plugged into a PC or a hub that can supply power. I have to remember what the Pocket Beagle needs on boot up, but I think it's like 250 milliamps when it's running full speed. So with a USB, if it's an old USB port, it might not provide enough power. This board does have a battery option, so if you want to power the Pocket Beagle from the power, get a little more juice. But so far I haven't had any power issues. So, but it might crop up. I got a big hub right here with like 20 devices plugged into USB. So let's see, my micro SD card is done. So we'll pop that out. So initially, we're not going to have anything plugged in. We're just going to set up the Wi-Fi interface. So I'm going to just plug in the Ethernet USB cable. And you should see one blinky light, and then these used to blink, but you'll have to wait about 10 seconds. I just upgraded BeagleBoard's U-boot version, and the LEDs weren't working, so I need to fix that. But when there we go. Now the Linux kernel is actually booted up. And just a moment, we should see both a COM port and network device show up.
Do you have 2 screens currently? Oh, fuck, where is it? Leave.
There we go. So the NCM, this is the Apple one. And there should be another Ethernet controller, network controller. There we go, RNDNS. So there's the Windows one, and there's the Apple control Ethernet. On Linux, it doesn't matter. So we could go over COM2 or COM12. So I tear a term up.
Okay.
And And the initial login credentials are always popped up first over serial port. So tell us what the image is. It's Hackaday. It was actually built this morning, and the default username is Debian, and the password is temp password. And since we're just going to edit a file, I'm just going to log in as root. It's less keystrokes. And there is a default Wi-Fi credentials kind of set up. So at WPA supplement. And so it's set up for no country really, and then just BeagleBone and BeagleBone. For this demo, I tweaked one of my routers, so I just have to get rid of, and this is one reason I don't like Nano in TerraTerminal. So let's get rid of that. So your Wi-Fi will vary. And this is where you had issues. You just hit reboot and then it locked up. So I know there's a TPS bug I was dealing with earlier too. So I wonder if we watch it, if it'll actually boot up or not. Oh, my finger and the screen aren't work. So get that out of the way. So I just hit reboot and the power's on. And I just had a thread about this from another user. I bet this, oh, it did. So Rick's, yeah, it looks like it's, yeah, the reboot didn't cause me an issue. But the other way you can do it instead of serial port is if you're a Windows machine, you can log in over SSH, Debian at 7.2, or if you're on a Mac, you can do 6.2.
What kind of backspace do you? What kind of terminal does it expect? Because I get all kinds weird.
Yep. So in TerraTerm, it's really weird. So you have to use Nano. You have to scroll to the end.
I'm not. So, I'm in the terminal. I'm in the console currently, and okay. I cannot do a backspace to fix my mistakes. I'm not in Nano, I'm not in VI, I'm just trying to change the WPA supplicant file. And of course I make mistakes when I type WPA supplicant file, and I just, when I do backspace, it says dot square bracket K instead of doing a backspace. So I try to change it to delete mode and what kind of mode, but so do you know by heart what kind of backspace Debian expects from the start?
Oh, that's a good question, because yeah.
Space. It's a dot now. I only got the package today at the end of the day, so it's like didn't have any time to set it up.
To test it, but yeah.
But I'll just struggle on and try to follow the video later.
Well, if the Wi-Fi still doesn't work, you can still go over the Ethernet connection. So in your case, ignore the Ethernet, use the 6.2. So yeah. Everyone's that's configured the Wi-Fi, if you do if config A, we can see what it's actually configured as. So WLAN, and then that's the IP address of the server. But for you, if the Wi-Fi doesn't work, grab that name or the 6.2.
Yeah, and then the account is Debian, not root, right?
Yep. There's two accounts: root and Debian and temp password. So by default, the usual way in is Debian and temp password.
Cool. I mean, thanks.
Yep. But so if you're over Wi-Fi, let's see, just get rid of that. And load up Firefox again. So fire up. Okay, got it. So in this case, over Wi-Fi, I'm 2.30 and 9123. If we go over the other port, the USB, which was 7.2. 7.2, 9123. You can still get into the application. The problem is when we try to register, oh, that's right. It's using my current credentials. So for Machinechat, the username is admin, the password is admin2. I mean, just admin the name, and that'll get you in. And then once you go through the EULA, you got to create a new password. And this is where it's remembering too many passwords. I'm just putting some default stuff into these just to fill them in. And then save. And then we can log in again. So this is where you're going to be stuck because this has to ping home. So this is why we need a working Wi-Fi. If you're on Ethernet, you get to this exact same screen and you'll input the activate license and it'll try to phone home and it'll fail. So everyone should have gotten a license key with the package. and that's a full-blown license. So in this case, I've already activated one and I have an SD card ready. So I'm actually swap SD cards. But at the same time, I'm going to plug in everything. So I'm just going to shut the board down. Pull my one I just flashed today and stick in the SD card that I've already kind of been working with today, and it's already activated. So starting with the sensors, grab the SH35. And this is going to go into I2C port 2. And there is a nice guide up here for all the pins at the top of the board. So I'm just going to plug I2C2 in. And then next will be the accelerometer, which will go in I2C1. And this is the one I mentioned. You could plug in the screen into I2C1 if you wanted to too, and then you can see it. But we're going to use this for data right now. And then we have the push button, which you're actually going to use UART4. So that header is right here. And I have pictures and instructions for all these if you get too far behind too. The slider and rotary switch are actually going to be analog inputs. So the rotary is going to be A5. And then the analog slider is going to be A2, which is right above it. So for today's demo, this is kind of the default layout that we're doing. The two I2Cs at the top, both analog on the left, and then UART4 is going to be the push button. So if we bring up the power to the board again. We don't need this here.
My hand. Fuck.
And with that, so you can see the LEDs. Yeah, normally U-boot would actually show like a 1, 2, 3, 4 boot process, but latest RCA U-boot and GPO had a little bug, so not enabled. And then if you have the serial still open, this will actually pop up when the board's alive and the serial terminal is going.
Did you already connect the accuracy, temp, and humidity sensor?
Yep. So that's going to be the top one. So that's this one. It'll be the top right.
Oh yes, it was out of screen. So
yeah, it's the one that's kind of flies all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. No, stupid thing.
So we're back up. The board's back up. So we can go back to here, hit refresh, and I don't remember all this. So this is the default layout of the screen. Let's see, where can we put this where everyone can see everything and still see the board? So this is JEDI 1. It's from Machinechat. This is the main star of the show. If we start with the data collectors, I'm going to just quickly remove all these. This is last minute testing. So this in the default state, all it has is HTTP listener enabled over port 81. So you could send either curl commands or CSV commands over Ethernet straight to this port, and this application will start actually logging the data. But since we're going to use local devices, we're going to start adding some collectors. So the first collector we're going to add is our temp sensor. So the SHT35, this number doesn't matter, it's just what I'm calling it. And it's a custom plugin. And we're going to, it's a plugin executable. So it's basically a Python script. And so I'm going to show you where these are actually stored too. So if I log in, and of course the keys changed again. So all these scripts are, I custom put them in this directory, Machinechat JEDI 1 plugins directory. And so here's all our Python scripts. So we're going to use the SHT one, which just reads the hardware monitor of this class and calculates the temperature and humidity based on Linux hardware monitor settings. So we'll grab tell it to use that. I want every 2 seconds. You could probably run it 1 second, but a lot of things are going on. And then we have to quickly validate the plugin, set this first so it doesn't take too long, and click run, and grab the temp sensor. And so it's got some data points, we got a temperature. And so here's the name of the sensor, the field, the value, and then the units. And then we click save. And now we're at this screen. So by default, it's enabled. We can disable it here or delete it. And one thing I like to show people now is one of the later, this didn't exist last year, but when you go back to the dashboards, you click on device dashboard and you can see some real-time data coming through. So I had all these sensors enabled. See 923, this one should be incrementing. And if I put my finger over it, you should see the temperature and humidity going up. So it's moving. So it's nice to see quick feedback that the sensor's actually reading, we're getting good data, it's not getting locked up. So I'll go back to the collectors and add our other devices. So we have our accelerometer. This is another plugin. It is a Python script and it is ADXL345. And that one is also in the same directory. So it's just reading device IO, X, Y, and Z raw data, and it's basically printing it out and transmit it. So every 2 seconds, click validate. I'll just click run. And so now we're getting the data X, Y, and Z. And then save. And if we go back to the dashboards, we can start seeing this one having some data on it too. That'll be this one. And I can show you how these were created. If you just click edit to the right, you can actually select all the different packets it's getting. So if I add these and then save, we should have a new packet for Digi-Key and RCN, which I had just running in the background. So I'm basically, the software can also monitor domains to see if devices are up. So there's a lot of nice little things you can do. We're gonna add another collector. This time we're gonna do a background task. And this one we just got working this morning. I've been learning Python as I've been hacking on this. So this is the U4 button. So U4, it's a follow a Python script using evdev, and we find a state whether the key is down or the key is up. And we're gonna do it as a background task. And so when I click validate, run, now I'm going to click the button a few times. And once this is done testing, we should see a big log of up downs of the button. There we go. So we got the state of the button, whether it was down or up. And I did it quite a few times. So we'll save that one. Let's see, we got 2 more to add. These are both ADC inputs. So the first one is going to be the slider. It's another plugin. And it's A2. So the A2 is just reads in raw voltage of port 2. So click validate. You don't need to leave that long. And then if you move the slider back and forth, we'll have slider data. Click OK and save. And we got one more collector to add in our default set. This is the rotary switch. It's another custom. Grab our Python. And this is very similar to the other one, it's just different port 4. So validate it pretty quick. So I'm gonna just move the rotary switch, more data, and then save. So there's our default list of our collectors. We have the accelerometer, the buttons, rotary, the temp sensor, and the slider. So if we go back to the dashboards, we can start adding some simple dashboards data. I think these are still present, but we'll delete them. So get rid of you. So add a default chart. This one we'll just call a temperature. And this one's kind of nice. So we'll start with a min value of 65 and let's just call it 85. And so now while the data has been collected, we can actually pick a source, and these are auto-populated as Machinechat gets the data. So we have not defined any types for temperature, humidity, but what we do have is we have our sensor, and it had two properties that are coming across, humidity and temperature. And if we look back at the Python script for this sensor, we sent temperature and humidity and then a value. So these are how these fields are populated. We did nothing in Machinechat. It was just how it was sent over. So we'll grab temperature and then we'll say it's in Fahrenheit and then update every once a second. So here's our chart going on. And if you grab the temp sensor and blow on it, you get pretty quick reactions to it. Next thing we should do is add a button. So we'll just call this the button, and the chart type, I think it's just a tile. And the source is going to be, it helps to actually have data. So I'm actually pressing the button now. So I'll let that go for a moment. And now we should see it. So if I do tile and then the button, source, there's our button data. So property is a state. And then, so is true, we're just to say it's on. So we'll blink it. And then when it's false, we'll just say it's off. So we'll add. And so right now the button is in an off state. I'll move this out of the way. And if I click the button, well, I should have saw it sooner than, oh, let's check something out. I bet the time was off. Yep, 5 seconds, change it to 1. So off, and I'll move this out of the way and we'll press it. And now it's on. So we're seeing direct state changes when we're doing things. The data shows up. And we could add some more charts. So the line graph is real cool. So this will be a temperature again. Actually, let's do the accelerometer. So the source is going to be ADXL, and we want the properties of the X. And the units for this doesn't really matter too much. Just click add. So here's the accelerometer. Now if I move the board, so we're getting pretty quick live feedback data. So this could be CO2 monitoring, could be temperature monitoring of a system. So right now we got live charts, but what if you are wondering about if something's going to happen or doesn't happen? So that's where we could have rules and actions. So we go in the rules, let's delete these old rules. Let's delete this. So by default, there are no rules usually set. So our first rule is going to be, we're going to look at the temperature. So let's say we're going to turn on the AC. So this is going to be a conditional rule. And the condition, we can grab any of these. So we want this sensor, we want its temperature. So when the temperature is greater than, let's see, what is temperatures right now is around 75. So we'll just say a number of 80. So if it occurs for more than 5 seconds, we are going to do an action. So click on the actions. And this is, we're going to turn on relay, which actually is an LED because I don't have any relays attached to this. And this is going to be a custom plugin. And the executable is called user of 4 on. So LEDs are on. And then there's a quick validation here.
Can't
Oh, you
use parentheses
Did I miss that?
up in the name.
Oh, yep, you can't use parentheses there, huh? Found another bug. For everyone listening, that's Daryl. He's one of the guys that works with Machinechat JEDI 1. So we can actually test this out by saying, oh, let's do 95 degrees, click validate. And this LED, oh, everything's in the way. This LED just turned on. So we're gonna save this. So we used 80, so then we're gonna use less than 80. So that's the rule to turn it on. And now we're gonna do a rule to turn it off. Off. So this is gonna be condition when temperature. And it's gonna be less than or equal. We used 80, so I think we'll use 79. Helps to write this stuff down. Off. LED. So this will be another plugin. And then we're going to turn off user 4. And click validate. So 85. And then I'm going to move this. And so you'll see this LED turn off really quick. So now the other LED kind of comes on so close. What I'm going to do, save. So we've got these true rules enabled. Let's go back to the dashboard. So we're at 73.8 right now. I wonder, will this kind of zoom in on this? So what we're going to do is heat this up. So we're at 80. Okay, now I'm going to figure out why my rule did not work. Rule greater than. Turn it on. Those are all right. Oh yeah, condition true for 5 seconds. I'm going to turn these down. 78. There we go. So the fourth LED came on. I know it's really hard to see if all 3 of them, but. And as this cools back down, that last one should go off momentarily as soon as it drops below 78. And 5 seconds, of course. There we go, LED's off. So it's really easy to create some rules and actions with this. You can also send emails and text messages based on different rules. There's a whole lot of options you can do. So that was the data. It's just the other thing you do is the system dashboard. You can actually create kind of like a nice diagram of what your system looks like. So this could be like a map of the area. So I want the temperature, Fahrenheit. And I don't check what the background is. We can create a map of your layout. So if this is a factory floor, you could have a bunch of sensors all over, and this could be your display panel. So this could be the brewery. So we'll add the slider. I think this goes up to 3,000. So as we move the slider, I think this is set for 75. There we go. Up overfilled it. Oh, let's see these. So it's really easy to create custom dashboards with this. All the data is stored locally on this, so you don't need to worry about Amazon or external cloud. If we actually go through the data storage, we can set metrics for how many days. We can see actual data historically, and this is all stored on the drive. Metrics. So everything is stored in common CSV files in the metrics directory. So you don't have to worry about all your data getting stored in someone's binary blob where you can never recover it again. So it's one of the very nice things about this application. And you can actually set up email and SMS providers for your notifications so that if you have one of your sensors, you want to report, you know, things are getting too hot or too cold, and add some more sliders to this. And these are all movable. You can make them big and small. And as I play up the slider, this one will go up and down. So it's a very nice way to store your data. You don't have to worry about Amazon or any other cloud providers. You can store it all locally. Data can come in multiple ways. It's one thing when you look at the data collectors, there's actually a couple different types. We can HTTP listener, you can actually do TCP files. Also brokers with MQTT, or you can create some virtual sensors, which also go off CSV data. So it's very easy to integrate this into with more sensors. And just a reminder, we got Daryl and EE on the line too. So if we have any questions you want to send to the developers and the team at Machinechat, you can definitely chime in. I think I've gone through most of the basics. Does anyone have any other questions? Did you want to jump in? Oh, you can also create per user accounts. So if you want to give half your team access to just some of the data or some things, you can actually create users that have different roles, admin or user, where users can just view the data, where admins can change everything they want. So you can create a system where user can see, just monitor stuff. But I still love the device dashboards, one of the best things they've added. You can see real time of all the data. You can only have eight readings up here, but it's really nice for seeing if things are working. And since there's not a lot of questions, I'm going to show you one of the things that I did with the kit that I wasn't able to show because I wish we had I2C Mux, but as you're playing around, it's something that's actually kind of fun to play with. Take this I2C cable, plug it into the screen. Now turn it back on. That might be too bright for the camera to pick up, but we'll give it a shot. Yeah, it's not picking up at all. But right now it actually says Grove LC's. It kind of comes to the right angle. This head camera is a little cheap, so it doesn't have quite all the options, but let's see.
If you put your hand over it, we can read it. Funny enough.
There we go. Thank you for that. That helps majorly. There we go. So for log in, and you can do fun things like echo hello. And it's just a dev LCD 0, just hit it. And there we go. So my main goal of this screen was also actually show live data, show your IP address, and make it real easy to debug it. And then we realized we only have 2 I2C ports, we need 3. So if I were to do this project again, I would add a MUX to your gift package to make it a little bit easier to have 3 I2C devices. So is there any other questions that anyone have or comments or other things you want to see from the application?
I have a basic question. I'm noticing that when I have the Wi-Fi plugged in, it's not booting. The BeagleBone isn't booting. And then when I unplug it, it seems to come to life. Have you seen that or?
So that's not enough power.
Okay.
So make sure you're using an external hub that's externally powered. But yeah, that's definitely a case where your laptop or PC sees too much juice. And it's pretty borderline. So I think the Pocket Beagle was 250, 300 milliamps on startup. USB spec allows up to 500. And then we add a Wi-Fi hub. Yeah, it blows through 500 pretty quick.
Okay. I had it on a hub, but I'll have to play with it.
Yeah, I got a big nasty hub I'm using right here that has a big 12-volt power supply on it. So
okay.
Kind of cheating, but yeah. And that's where the battery connector on the side is kind of nice, but there's no battery that's included in the kit. But try externally powered hub that should get you more juice. Let's see, do I have my reader right here? There we go. I'll give you a live reading what's actually drawn.
So the battery is just a lithium battery, or what is it expected?
It's just a 2-cell or 1-cell. I need to look at what Seed actually recommended it for it. Okay, we're taking 0.3 amps at 5 volts right now.
Yeah, it says 5 volt next to it, 5.4.
So we're taking 1.5 watts. So yeah, you gotta be a pretty beefy USB hub. Let's see, did we actually document that in Beagle Grove kit? So this is the main document page for this. And if we go to the tutorials, let's see if we actually documented the battery. Oh, no battery there. Let's take a look at the design files. Just a 2-hitter. Oh, that's a good question. I'll have to bug Jason why we never documented that. Imagine it's 5 volts.
Did you show the Python code, or how does that work? Is that something that you have to edit on the device, or?
So I was just showing examples for the Python code that's actually I pre-installed this morning.
Okay.
So but you don't have to edit it on device. It was more of just give you an idea what's running. And I put them both on the page with all the instructions this morning. But they are installed in the Debian package DK Hackaday for BeagleBoard. And so here is the source for all the scripts. I'll put this in chat.
And JEDI 1 can execute anything that runs on that platform. So, I mean, if you like to write things in C, it can execute a C binary or Java or Golang or whatever your favorite language is on the platform.
It just uses standard kind of terminal ins and outs?
Yeah, we use standard out from the program, and we read standard out. And if you look at those Python examples, it shows you how to format the print statements so that JEDI knows that, hey, this data is for me. I'll consume that. And we also have a document on our support site, which talks about how to format that data. Often there's examples for sensors out there, and you just need to tweak the print statements, and you can use those almost as is.
Okay, thanks.
And we're almost taking 2 watts right now. So if your power supply isn't beefy, it's not going to work.
Where are these scripts installed in the other system?
Yep, that's what I was just showing. So on the screen, the binary is an opt Machinechat JEDI, and then the scripts are under a directory called plugins, and that's where Machinechat automatically looks. And of course, tree's not installed. But yeah, I just installed everything under opt MC JEDI.
Ah, yes.
So we got all the object files, all those files, and then all the plugins and the sliders. So it's nice if you have to do any upgrades and a new version of JEDI comes out, you can just uninstall the service that's running and then all your data stays there, and just install the new version and it'll read and pick it all up. So upgrades are nice and seamless. And the one thing we're showing in this demo is like everything's attached to the Pocket Beagle, but they could be over Ethernet or Wi-Fi, where a sensor just sends the data or to HTTP. I think last year when we did this example, we were running on a Raspberry Pi 3. Machinechat we were programmed an external ESP32 that had a temp sensor, and so the ESP32 over Wi-Fi would send data to a Raspberry Pi.
Does it support MQTT out of the box as well?
Yep, Daryl's and his team have been working a lot on that. It supports authentication style and non-authenticated.
Cool.
So they've done a lot to the MQTT support. I can actually go into data collectors and let's see, MQTT collector type, and then mosquito broker. And yeah, it supports a lot of configurations options. So listening, your root certificates, protocol options. Yeah, Daryl and his team have done a great job on mosquito. And on Machinechat's forums, there's a couple examples. Let's see, support. So I'll put this in chat.
Hey, You guys have a lot of really good examples up on the tech forum.
Yep, I want to get you guys this first though. Here's Machinechats, and then where's ours? So there's Scott Raker and I are posting a lot here, and so we've done things with set a pile of them. These really nice seed displays. Scott's using Mosquito between this and another device. So this just becomes a dumb display, and it just shows a graph of real-time data, and it's a little battery power that the size of a Honeywell sensor. So yeah, Mosquito works great for that.
I see you using IP address for the MQTT server. I set up my whole network with an MQTT DNS name. Is it also possible, or do I have to hard code the IP number in there?
You can use a name or the IP.
Already, it says it must contain a valid IP. Or
oh, I'm sorry. Yes, in this particular collector, you do have to select from a drop down. And can you do that, Robert? Can you click on that? Listen IP.
Oh, listen IP.
Yeah, those are.
So these are the active connections. So this will be your Echo, USB 0, and Ethernet and WLAN. So that's more of the interface than anything else.
Let's see. So listen.
It's not really a listen IP. It's a what?
Oh, which
route?
Yeah. So broker. Where? I'm trying to find the broker IP or name.
Let's see route.
Oh, wait a minute. The Beagle board is the broker in this case. I have to send stuff from my other broker. Ah, okay. Yes. Okay. Clear.
So these come from here. Where 7.2 and 2.30, so it's the different subnets.
I was confused. All my ESP devices send it to a broker, but this is the broker.
Yeah, this could. I think Daryl, you also support the other mode, but it can be a broker or just a listener. Or I forget the term, but MQT is fun.
We don't support client at this time.
No,
but we do have broker.
Yeah, so you can map it back and forth. It's no problem. Okay.
There are other places in our software though where you can use, a fully qualified name or whatever, but here you're forced to use.
It was just confusing because listen IP, I thought, oh, I have to add in the broker name.
I see.
That was my confusion because I know
if you end up with like a PC with multiple NIC cards or whatever, Wi-Fi and wired, you'll see those interfaces show up separately.
Yeah,
as we're seeing here, because we got the three, we got the Echo, we got USB 0, and then this is the Wi-Fi. So
cool.
Yeah, so we just gotta get these names exported up there.
Yeah, Robert, that's a good point about the power you mentioned before. I measured it, and on one of the regular ports, it dropped to about 4 volts.
Yep.
and didn't boot. So important to have a nice beefy USB.
And then every time I touch this, it's like this cable. But yeah, we're sitting at 2 watts max. So
yeah, this is Rick. I found my problem was just had to plug it into an actual USB power supply. I didn't like it coming off my PC.
Yeah, because it's 2 watts we're drawing right now. So if we just would have put a Type-C connector on there, then it would have been easier for everyone because it's like there's only one port that works and they all support lots of power.
Well, USB-C has its own, how do you call it in English?
Yep, random cable issues.
Exactly.
Or someone's out of spec ports or
different kind of cables.
Or Apple's secret chip inside the cable.
Exactly. So when I put my iPhone on my iMac, it can charge with 2 amps, but not the Beagle board.
I'm just glad that we finally figured out the Ethernet for Apple again, so things are working again.
This is great, Robert. I love the collectors you created for these various input devices. Nice.
Yeah, they were kind of quick little hacks, but they work really good. So
can they just use a passive Grove like I2C multiplexer?
Yep, there's a 1 in 4 seed. I squared C mux. Because there's a passive one that has like 5 ports on it.
Okay.
And when I put together this kit, I wasn't really thinking like, oh, yeah, 2 will be enough. And seeds, yep. So here's this, here's the. So this one would work really good. So you just plug one in and it's just 4 wires essentially muxed together. So if I were to upgrade this kit, I'd add another $3.20 to it. And then we could do a lot more sensors. And we should mention too that once you've activated this license on the Pocket Beagle, it's pretty much stuck to that device. If you hadn't registered it, it's good for pretty much any BeagleBone or BeagleBone Black or Pocket Beagle. It's just looking for the AM335. But it's essentially, it's a full version, so enjoy it. And just from the comments, yep, John, love to see you put that on your sump pump. It's getting close to that season up here where we have to monitor our sump pumps in the winter, so. And if you want to have some fun, there's some more sensors on here. There is the top devices all need a custom driver for Linux, but we got a nice ultrasonic distance sensor, RGB LEDs. The PWM speaker, as long as you put a PWM out, you can make the speakers some really nasty noises. And then on the bottom was another, it's an I2C touch sensor. And these are actual probes. I've seen people like make handheld gaming or they just run wires to something with them. So up, and then Magenta's are getting ready to tell us we're done. See how that look like? It's
well,
time,
I don't
so.
have to, but we do want to be respectful of everyone's time here. So if there's not any other questions, we will wrap up. And I don't know if, I think you guys all pretty much put your best links out there already, but if there's any contact info that Rob or our Machinechat developers want to drop in the chat, feel free. And then as we mentioned, we'll send out the recording. I will ask you, Rob, to stay on for a couple moments once everyone leaves so we can sort out the hosting recording situation.
Yeah, because I got to switch over.
And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us.